If you're using Instagram to market your business, you'll need an image strategy beyond just post and pray. On today's episode, we'll talk about 5 things to consider when preparing your images for Instagram.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, and welcome to the Marketing Essentials podcast. Our unique team helps small businesses grow by providing essential marketing expertise.
Hello, and welcome to the Marketing Essentials podcast. My name is Bill with W. Palmentier Photography.
I'm Justin of Justin Kerr Design.
And I'm Alicia with the Spark Social.
And together we make up
the Marketing Essentials team.
So today we are going to be talking about Instagram.
Right.
More specifically, we're going to talk a little bit about curating your Instagram as a business. Now we're aiming this in the vein of businesses, not necessarily personal Instagram accounts, but a lot of what we're talking about can also fit if you have a personal brand you're working with.
Yeah, I'm a little fuzzy on the whole, personal brand on Instagram versus marketing your business on Instagram.
Well, it depends. Are you marketing yourself or are you marketing your business or both?
Well, my current strategy is kind of both because I am the business.
So you're probably going to market it on both parts of your account. You'll have a business account, but you'll also have a personal account. So
that's a good example of a personal brand.
Yeah.
I think that people get a little confused. And
sure. No, it makes sense.
themselves.
And most people don't give it a thought. They just I created an Instagram account. Boom, let's start doing stuff. And
right.
And what we want to talk about today is not necessarily about Instagram itself as much as how are you portraying yourself on Instagram.
Okay.
And how are you portraying your brand.
So more the visuals and the branding behind, not like the technical how-to.
Not the technical how-to. We have podcasts. We'll link to the original podcast that we did that talked about the how-to. And I just want to go a little bit more into content strategy, so to speak, and more from a visual standpoint, not necessarily on a storytelling, because we've talked about that in the past also. But I want to talk a little bit about how visuals can either enhance or take away from what you're doing as far as your Instagram strategy is concerned. Yeah,
that you answered my question before I asked it because, that was going to be my next point. Why does this even matter? Why can't you just post whatever you want?
Well, in some cases you can, but for the most part, it's better to have a strategy. Like anything else, if you've got a plan going in, you have a better idea of where you're going. Mm-hmm. If you don't have a plan, you kind of shotgun approach and hoping you hit what your target is. And sometimes you'll hit it, sometimes you're not going to.
Mm-hmm. It's like a website in a way. It's a social media channel, but it's going to visually represent your brand and your company. You're going to want that strategy.
Everything's all intertwined. Somebody wouldn't come to you and do a social media campaign without knowing where they wanted to go with the social media. If they just said to you, hey, Alicia, I want to put together a social media campaign. And you said, what? I don't care. Just whatever you want to put up.
Yeah, we'll just post,
Yeah, just start posting.
That's all that it is. You just go out there and you post and you just go viral. And that's how it works. That's social media in a nutshell.
Of course, that's how it works, right?
Our retainers start at $1 million a month for that.
And when it comes to websites, Justin, you don't have to give it any thought, right?
Oh, no, not at all.
You just get one of those Wix websites and
one night you just go home, type it up, and throw on the graphics. The website's good to go. And
now that we've bashed that all.
Okay.
Well, it just makes a good point that there's a strategy behind everything out there. The people who are seeing success with marketing have put the time in, they've paid their dues, they've done their homework, and they work with professionals or they've done it themselves, but there's strategy to it. Mm-hmm. And so with Instagram, on that note?
Yeah, well, this all came out of a class that I taught not too long ago where it was an Instagram 101 class that I did. It was called The Do's and Don'ts of Instagram. And I wanted to take it beyond just how do you set up an Instagram account. So I'm taking the second half of that and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So those 5 things that Justin alluded to in the beginning aren't necessarily all image related, but they all fall into how you design an image.
Okay.
So before we go, I want to just throw a few quick stats so people can say.
Can I read these?
Sure, go for it. Well, the thing is most people think most people think Instagram and they go, why do I need that? Well, there are a lot of people using Instagram, and Justin, go ahead, throw out the stats. Go.
All right, so some quick Instagram stats. Instagram has 1 billion monthly active users. 500 million are active daily users. Instagram users spend an average of 53 minutes a day on the app. Now, of course, me, because I have weird thoughts, I wonder how many minutes of those 53 are actually spent on the toilet. Come on, we all do it. We all do it.
Moving on.
All right.
Social
63.
media potty time.
That's right.
Sorry.
You know that Facebook and Instagram have a way of tracking that. You just know they have some way of tracking that.
It's your cameraman. Put a little
Yeah, I'm telling you.
So creepy.
Okay, 63% of Instagram users log on at least once a day. And 75% of all U.S. businesses will be on Instagram by the end of this year, 2020. So, wow, 3/4 of all U.S. businesses.
So what does that tell you? That means
You better have a plan.
Yeah, because it's going to get saturated real quick. And how are you going to stand out? You got to stand out by the imagery and the content you're putting up.
Right.
And if you're not doing that, people are just going to.
And I would say this podcast is for people who've already made the decision that, yes, I'm going to market myself and business on Instagram. If you're not sure, you should probably go back and listen to one of the other episodes about which social media channel is best for my business.
So in this podcast today, we're going to talk primarily about images. A lot goes into the content, and we're going to talk about these 5 specific things. Now, before you even take your first image, and I'll go back for 1 second. The other thing I did say, and I don't know if I'll have to restate it. I'll just restate it for this. I'm going to be talking primarily about images here. At the end, I may briefly touch on video, but right now we're just talking on static images.
Start with that. I think that's a good place to
start. We're going to start with that, and maybe it'll turn into a second podcast at some point in time where we'll talk about the video.
You've been known to do part 1s and 2s.
Wouldn't be the first time. But anyway, so the first thing you need to do, and Alicia, you can really buy onto this one, is define your target audience.
100%.
If you don't know who's already buying from you, what makes your brand unique, you don't know what your competitors are doing, and you don't have a clear value statement for your brand, how do you know what to create content?
Exactly.
You might hit on 1 or 2 of those, but the reality is you may be, and we've talked about this with other guests, you may think that you know what your clients are looking for, but do you?
Yeah. And we have a podcast to find out what your customers really want.
Yeah. This whole podcast is just going to be referencing previous podcasts.
Welcome to Podcastception.
Yeah, no kidding. So anyway, so that's the very first step, is define what your target audience is. You need to know who you're going after before you're going to create any content. Because if you don't,
your images aren't going to fall flat.
Yeah. Now, this is an interesting thing, and Justin probably has dealt with this, the second one here, a lot with web design. But this is something that I just recently have started thinking a little bit more about, which is color theory when it comes to imagery. People are affected by certain colors in certain ways. Justin, I'm sure you can jump in on this as well.
Yeah, there's a whole psychology to color, when it comes to marketing and branding.
I actually have a graphic here, and we'll throw this graphic in the show notes, but this talks about specifically how retail shoppers view colors.
Interesting.
So if you,
I hadn't seen this before.
Yeah. So basically, royal blue, black, and orange are considered impulse buying colors. If you're trying to get somebody on just a quick kind of impulse buy, those are the colors you want to focus on. So now you're going to say to me, well, what does that got to do with images? Well, you can actually use a lot of those colors within the imagery that you're doing, and it still uses the same psychological effect.
And when you say imagery, Bill, do you mean photos?
I mean photos, I mean graphics, I mean everything that you're putting forth. Even so, I mean, obviously, Justin, from the end of branding, depending on the type of clientele that you're going after, he's going to use those colors also within the branding. Yeah,
I was going to ask you about that, because if let's say your brand color is blue, but according to this, red orange is going to get someone's attention, especially if they're an impulse shopper. Are you saying they should, I'm going to recommend they stay within their brand colors, but you're saying incorporating some of this into your Instagram marketing is going to have an advantage. So where's the balance there?
Well, you wouldn't want to go too far off brand, because obviously the brand is something you're trying to build if you're a business. And if you've thought out the color palette and you've worked out something with your branding designer, stay with that as much as possible. Obviously, that's going because you want people to recognize those colors. But if you're offering a new product or something that's a little bit, different than the norm from what you do, this is a good starting point. Again, I wouldn't override your branding colors, but these are just some things to keep in mind. This is how shoppers think. And again, this is in a retail setting. So when somebody walks into a store, these are the colors that represent what they think. So for instance, navy blue and teal tend to be more budgetary type of things. What that means is, well, think about Best Buy made their name on being originally discount electronics. Mm-hmm. Thus, they have the navy blue kind of
it's blue and yellow. Well,
yeah,
a little bit. I think there's a little bit of yellow in it.
A little tiny bit, but for the most part, the blue is the navy blue is the
big
outstanding
blue tag.
Yeah, and think about when you go to a place like Walmart.
Oh,
they use the navy blues, they use the yellows, they use the whites. Mm-hmm. So again, that falls right in with the budget type of thing. Now, when you start talking more traditional buyers, you get the pastels. Mm-hmm. Think about I'm trying to think. There was one that I just saw recently that it was on TV too. It was a commercial. It was some food. I'm gonna have to think about this one, but it was this company that was using these vignettes where the backgrounds were all these pastel colors and it was all different types of foods. So it was for traditional buyers. Now, again, this graphic that I'm talking about is not the end all be all. It's just a good starting point for you to start thinking about, well, what colors do I want to represent in my imagery? Now, I would also, and I've talked about this in the past, is also darkness versus bright and airy. You know, if you're a clothing manufacturer like, say, the Gap, is the Gap still around?
Yeah.
It's still around. They tend to be much bright, light, airy type of images. Mm-hmm. Trying to think something that's a little bit darker, you know, maybe your beers and stuff like that. Those type of commercials tend to be a little bit on the darker palette.
I think visually, when I think of dark colors, I was looking at Trillium Brewing's Instagram grid recently. You can just see a very cohesive visual look, and they play on dark colors to bring out. They do a lot of IPAs, so that they bring out the oranges of that. But then you have breweries like Long Live, and they're known for their bright cans and crazy artwork, and their grid looks completely different.
Sure.
And so it's the same product, but a different take. But it's that cohesive brand.
And you know what they say about rules, you know, you follow them most of the times, but there's times when you can break them and you can get away with it. And so I wouldn't hold fast to anything we're talking today and saying this is absolutely the way it has to be.
Yeah, no, there's no marketing. There are no rules in marketing. There's standards and there's best practices. But I think at the end of the day, when you think of your visuals, you can be a disruptor. You could be, you know, a candy company and have darker visuals if that's like Snickers, right? Like that's candy. They have a darker visual versus someone like Twizzlers or Skittles. They're brighter and more fun. So it's really comes down to who your brand is. And then I think anyway.
Yeah. Like we said at the very beginning, brand takes first precedence over everything else.
Right.
And then obviously you can use everything else as long as it fits in line with the original brand. Now, if you start finding yourself going, okay, I want my images to really be along this way, and your brand doesn't fit with that, well, you got to think one of the two. You have to either, do we have to tweak our brand a little bit, or do we have to tweak our content a little bit?
Right. So like if and I think it varies if you're a product or if you're a service too, because product, you have your logo on your product. If there's packaging or if you have something to sell, you can do similar setups visually. But if you're a service, now you have to put some extra thought into how your brand is going to be displayed visually because you don't have that very easy, yeah.
And it's not always just in colors when you start thinking about brand from that aspect when you're talking about services. It may be, are you a serious type of business? Are you a little bit more of a fun-loving type of business?
Right.
Are you, obviously emotion plays into a lot of people's purchasing, and you want to make sure, are you striking on the right emotion? I didn't put that in the top 5 that I have here, but that's another thing to keep in mind when you're talking about content is what kind of story are you trying to tell? Is it have some sort of emotion connected to it?
Yeah.
So that's one that I just noticed wasn't on my list, but I'm going to put that on there now. So anyway, the 6 things, I'm kidding. No, all kidding aside. So the next thing is rules of thirds. Who knows what rule of thirds are?
Your picture doesn't always have to be like center.
Well, actually, picture a picture. There we go. Think of a picture in your mind, right? Justin's laughing over here because I said picture a picture or what?
No, I have Lucy in the sky with diamonds running through my head.
Oh, jeez, Lucy. I got you. Anyway, so imagine a photo or an image. Now put a tic-tac-toe board across that, overlay the top of it. It's all basically set up into sections of thirds. So 3 across, 3 down. You want the subject of your image to fall within one of those intersects.
So I took like one photography class, and this is like the one thing I remembered. So I think I understand what you're saying. I think I had the right thing.
It's considered part of the rules of composition. When you're composing a photo, you want to try to get it to land on one of those cross points.
Is it just because like the way
it's the way our minds work? Yeah, it's more visually appealing to us to see this. Matter of fact, we talked about when we did the headshot podcast a while back. The way you look in a headshot can actually bring a viewer into the information you're trying to get them or out of the information you're trying to get them into, depending on how you have the composition of it.
Right. There's a lot of psychology that goes into how we perceive visuals.
Yeah. So 3 and 4 3 is the rule of thirds, 4 is composition. So you really want to think, okay, do I need to be following the rule of thirds with this? Because is it going to be visually pleasing? Is it going to look right? Now, the next part is the composition. How does it look overall? What is the composition of the photo? You know, if you're taking an image for something that's a service, say,
okay,
and you just want to, let's take a headshot, just because we're talking about headshots, and you decide to put somebody in front of a wall that's got all kinds of graffiti and writing all over it. It's pretty distracting, the background, unless you've somehow blurred that out. Mm. So that takes away from the composition of the image.
Okay.
It confuses the viewer. So if you've got a very cluttered background that's not blurred out, people's eyes are bouncing all over the place trying to figure out, well, what's the subject of this? What am I trying to see? Same thing with a product. If you were putting a bottle of beer on the edge of a bar, say, and the background was a complete really mess, really busy, people don't know where to look.
Right. You have to bring them in quickly.
Yeah. So you have to think about where is the focus of each image. So that's something that you should be thinking about anytime you're shooting an image for Instagram. What's the composition like?
What's your take on flat lays then? Because, I mean, those can get a little busy. Like you have multiple different items laid out.
That's not too bad if they're all connected into one another in some way. So, for instance, if it's a food, some sort of health company that's dealing with different type of healthy foods and they have it all set out. Okay, fine. That's fine. But if it's too confusing for the consumer to understand what it means,
too busy.
It's too busy at that point. You really want to think about every image that you're putting forth as how is the consumer on the other end going to understand that.
And our flat lay is part of your brand.
Yes,
so just for our listeners, because not everybody is familiar with what a flat lay is, it's kind of like looking downward.
So
the easiest one to picture is like a table with food on it, and the camera is from above looking down at the table.
And that works very well in food photography.
Yeah, or product, like if you have like T-shirts and you want to position it, whatever. I see it a lot on Pinterest.
Yeah.
One of my clients didn't know what that was when I asked for them to provide us with some. And I love her. I love our clients. I love all of them. But she emailed me back and she's like, here's the lay flats that you asked for. So now we call them La Flats.
La Flats.
Yes, it sounds, we call them La Flats inside French. Our agency. Yes, it's very fancy.
It's a new way of doing things.
Yes. But anyways, so that's an example of composition when you're working with several different things, but still keeping the focus.
Mm-hmm. Now I do product photography. Now the other thing to think about is what are you trying to convey? I have a client that does CBD products that aims towards the athletic industry.
Interesting.
So we want to have lifestyle shots that are going to be an athlete of some sort, whether it be a tennis player or something like that, holding the product or using the product. That's part of the composition too. How does it fit with your brand? Mm-hmm. If you're, it wouldn't make sense for me to get a doctor. Wow, we got all kinds of noise going on in the background here, but that's okay. It wouldn't make sense for me to put, maybe you would, but pardon this, but it wouldn't make sense to put a stoner on the front page, holding up a piece of holding up the bottle.
I don't know. Yeah. But like, so you want to paint the composition. I could picture like a tennis racket, but like the product is positioned with like that.
Yeah. So you really just want to really think about how does everything that's within the image fit with what you're trying to convey.
Yeah.
It takes more than just, oh, hey, look, I get this product. Let me throw it on a table and take a picture.
Now, what if you are a service-based business, like a financial planning firm or a HVAC industry? I always like to use HVAC because it's like typically not a sexy visual image?
Yeah, I think you have to understand what that business is known for. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
I'm dealing with I deal with a couple of construction industries as far as some of the shoots that I do. And it's not really about what they are doing as much as it's about the experience that the end user is going to get. Is it a clean environment that's kept up? Is it, do these guys look professional when they show up? Because let's be honest, contractors tend to get a bad rap as far as how they look when they walk into a job site a lot of times. So, a lot of the what we're talking about as far as the composition and everything is how does it fit with your business? And I hate to keep harping on this, but you really need to go back to what are you trying to convey with each image?
So like bring out the personality of your brand.
Yeah. You should always be putting that up against that lens of, see what I said, lens? Me and my puns, but put it up against the lens of what are you trying to convey? Maybe you're just trying to get somebody's interest, just to get them to understand who you are. That may be the initial shot to bring them in to further understand a little bit more about your business. It's not always, I've got to get everything within this one shot. First of all, it's impossible. Second of all, you don't want to confuse your potential customer. So we had John, I can never say his last name, Antonacci on the previous podcast.
Yeah, for video marketing.
Or coming up, I guess. He wouldn't be on this one, but he talked about hero shots in video. Well, that also happens in photography too, where you're going to show. I'll give you an example. Those of you who watched the Super Bowl leading up to the fact that the Patriots didn't make it into the Super Bowl, there was a lot of hubbub around.
Who are the Patriots?
Who are the Patriots?
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I don't watch sports.
How many of you actually saw the image that Tom Brady posted about 3 days before the Super Bowl?
I did not.
Okay, so there was
sorry.
No, that's good. But this is a classic example of a hero shot.
Okay.
What happened was he went out on his Instagram account and posted a shadowy figure in a doorway or the archway going into a football field, which looked like a Foxborough Stadium,
Okay.
That's all he did. And I think he might have a small note under it, but people went crazy. Is he leaving the Patriots? It's a contract here. Is he leaving? Is he coming back? Blah, 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 blah. I recognized it immediately. And I actually said to my wife, I said, this is a gimmick.
Okay.
She's like, really? What? Well, for 3 days, he got all kinds of free.
I'm pulling up his Instagram account.
Yeah. He pulled up.
Screenshot this.
Actually, if you look up Hulu and Tom Brady, you'll see it. Because I'll give away the second part of it. What ended up happening was it was all part of an elaborate Hulu promo.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So what he did was he knew that people were concerned that he wasn't going to stay with the Patriots next year because it was a contract year for him. So he used that. And then the night of the Super Bowl, he had a commercial on the Super Bowl.
Yeah. We'll screenshot it and put this in.
And that commercial was about Hulu. And at the end of the Hulu commercial, he even went a step further and said, I'm not going anywhere. Well, everybody's like, well, what does that mean? Does that mean he's staying with the Patriots? Does that mean he's just not retiring and he may end up with another football team? So the marketing on that was so brilliant because it brought people in. So that hero shot was just that shadowy figure of him overlooking the field.
Wow.
And that was enough to get people's interest. They didn't know what was going on with it.
I want to click on it, but it's a video, so it might make noise.
It's okay. It makes the noise.
Oh, no, it's not. Okay. It has 3.3 million views.
Yeah, so it actually blew up. I mean,
on Instagram.
This is the type of advertising you can't pay for. You know what I mean? It's real. I mean, obviously, I guess somebody must have paid Tom to do this, but what I'm saying is the amount of eyeballs that Hulu got on their video in the end was phenomenal. I don't know what the numbers were on it, but think about it,
Wow.
So that was all off of an image.
Oh, no, wait. This is what he did. So he posted an image and then he posted the video.
Yeah. The video didn't get posted until after the Super Bowl because it was an ad that was played during the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So what he did was he just put up just that image and let the entire internet go crazy for 3 days.
Yes, it has 32,000 comments.
Yeah.
Of people debating, what does this mean?
Yeah. And then, and then there were some people that were a little bit more than upset the fact that it was a commercial, but That is what it is, But from a marketing standpoint, it was brilliant as far as I'm concerned. So
yeah, that is done very, very well.
So now the other thing is a single image may be as simple as that hero shot I was just talking to you about, where it's just an image, and it may bring them back to your website. It may bring them to your Facebook page. It may bring them, or may cause them to come back to your Instagram feed in a couple of days to find out the second part of it. Mm-hmm. So you need to be thinking long game when it comes to your content. How can you make it pull into different aspects of your business,
right,
and your marketing?
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. So
yeah, Instagram, it's an important social media channel to be on, but I mean, you got to put some strategy into it. You can't just post anything from your phone. And I mean, I don't want to throw any businesses under the bus, but I was looking for something this weekend for my wedding, and their Instagram was so bad.
Oh yeah.
And wedding, it was decor, it was decorations, and there was no brand. I couldn't see clearly through the pictures. They were using filters. There was no strategy. And to me, I'm just like, I can't really get a feel for what this company could do for me.
Can we talk a minute about filters?
Next. Yeah. Oh, filters.
Just get rid of filters. Don't even.
I think every photographer out there.
My personal opinion is people think that filters somehow make a bad picture better. No. It just makes a crappy picture just as crappy. Sorry. I hate to say it. I've seen very few situations where the off-the-shelf filters that you get from Instagram or Facebook make it much better.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you ever used one, Justin? I'm calling them out here.
I don't think I've used a filter.
I've played around with them to see what they were like, and it was just like, didn't even make it that far. No,
they're not that great. They're generic looking. You can tell when the filters have been used. I can almost pinpoint. This is Lark. This is X Pro. This is Paris.
So let's back up for one more second. Now we just finished talking about the whole Tom Brady thing. That video was also on his Instagram feed because it was under a minute and was able to throw that in there. The commercial. That's the second part of this. And again, we'll probably have to talk about this at a later date. But video. You've heard me say this before, and I'm going to say it again. Video is king. Video is king. Video is king. Ultimately, more eyeballs get touched when it comes to video as opposed to any other form. You can convey a bigger message.
Okay.
You can, it's just, and again, people stop and listen longer and watch longer when it's a video versus just a single image. Now, something to think about with Instagram, unless you're going over to Instagram TV where you're allowed to do longer form video, Instagram itself will hold you to 1 minute total length of the video before you have to bring it over to Instagram TV. So you need to really think about that as part of your strategy too. If you're doing video for Instagram, how can you convey the message you want to convey in under a minute? Hey, what do we got?
Justin's over there playing on Instagram.
I was playing on Instagram. I hit something. I didn't know it was.
Did you find anything good on Instagram?
I was just looking at Nike, Adidas, and Reebok just to see if they were different in how they, did their Instagram. And I would say the biggest difference is they all pretty much do the same thing, but Nike looks like super curated. You know? It looks like someone is very careful about the images that they put up there. Adidas and Reebok look a little bit more random, look like people. There's different people contributing. Yeah. Whereas Nike looks like it's definitely got one look and feel to it, just top to bottom. And it's usually it's just these very sort of high contrast black and white portraits of their athletes that they.
Well, that's their look. Everything is the high contrast black and white.
But it's very consistent looking as compared to, say, Adidas and Reebok.
Now, I haven't looked at it in a while, but another Instagram account that was highly curated early on, and I noticed this when we did one of our previous podcasts, was Chobani's. Chobani had an incredibly curated Instagram feed. Now,
now I'm going to pull that up.
Of course, like I said, I haven't looked at it recently, so I'll let you guys pull it up and let me know.
It's almost like one of my favorite things to do as a social media marketer is go through someone's Instagram feed and scroll way back to the beginning of Instagram time, and you can see how brands progress and when you can almost pinpoint when their strategies change. Now, Chobani went through a rebrand recently, so this should be an interesting one.
Now, you do realize that there are ways to hide photos that you've put up previously. Not delete them, but hide them. You can actually go in on each individual image and archive it. So then it becomes unseeable to a person that's just
Chobani
coming
did
to
not.
it.
So you can see before how their market,
So
you
it
can
really
see
depends.
where their grid changes, literally.
So if you're in a situation where your consistency wasn't good early on, and then all of a sudden you start nailing it, you can get rid of all that stuff prior. I mean, people, if they work hard enough, they can find it, but it's not going to be easily found.
I suppose it all depends on if you feel like it detracts from your current brand or not.
Yeah.
I think like as long as you put some thought into it, it's okay to show the progression of your brand. But I mean, if there's like a really horrible, it's kind of like, why did I?
So ultimately, let's sum up here because we're getting towards the end of this podcast. And so five things that you want to think about prior to posting any type of content on Instagram are: define who your target audience is. Because obviously, if you don't know who you're going after, it's not going to help.
Number 2 would be considering how color affects how people are going to perceive your content.
Yep. And then number 3 is the rule of thirds: when to use it, when to not use it. Now, we didn't really get too far into that, but I will post an article that I recently saw about rule of thirds.
Okay.
That'll kind of explain when you can break that rule when it comes to advertising and marketing.
4 is related to number 3 in composition. So how have you composed the photo? How's it cropped?
How's the lighting? I wouldn't even talk about lighting, but
Right.
how's the lighting? How's the background?
Right.
We didn't really get to dive in on number 5 though.
Oh, yeah.
This is
look
a
at
sore
that.
spot for me. This one is a sore spot for me.
Wow,
Number
okay.
5, using text creatively, because this is Justin's jam here. Because when you don't work with a graphic designer, I hate text and images on Insta. You have to be like Kit Kat does a good job.
Yeah.
Twizzlers does a good job, but they have a graphic designer doing it. Chobani.
Well, they also keep the font in line. They keep the branding standards in line when they do this. There are people that, please, I'm not picking on it because I think it's a good product. Canva is great, but it allows you to do so much that if you're not paying attention to what you're doing as far as keeping in line with your branding, it's real easy to make fonts and colors.
Yeah, and then you're just going to have a bunch of text that nobody resonates with, doesn't display your brand. It doesn't stop people in the feed.
No.
Kit Kat, really great example. I am not a big fan of text in the feed, and I will screenshot this, but this is graphically designed, people. This is not Canva style. This is brand guide. So this is the one exception I would say if you're going to use, and I don't know, Bill, what's your take on text?
That's well done.
No, Kit Kat does a great job. And the first thing, I'm just looking at this over your shoulder here. Look, what else sticks out to you other than the text?
No, the color.
Everything is red. Everything
making me hungry.
And believe it or not, red is part of that impulse. Even though it's not on the list here.
Because grab a Kit Kat,
red is an impulse color. So they early on, when they were building their brand, that it's a reddish orange color that they use for the Kit Kat wrapper and everything along that whole line. So now it's like, oh, an impulse. Hey, I want a Kit Kat. I'm in the grocery store. I see I'm at the checkout. Where do people buy most of their candy? At the checkout counter. There you go.
Where do most people bribe their children when they're out grocery shopping?
At the checkout counter. But the reality of the matter is they've done a phenomenal job of...
Yeah, no, it's very consistent.
Of curating it.
The tone, the color, the composition, the photography, the lighting, the other one, it's all very consistent.
Yeah.
The other, along the line of candy, the other one that used to do a really good job, and I haven't checked them recently, is Twix.
Now, here's my question. I don't follow that many people on Instagram, but I don't follow any major brands.
Yep.
So where are these showing up, Alicia? Like who's following Kit Kat where this stuff is showing up in their feed? I mean, are there people that actually do that?
Yeah. Twix has almost 1,797,000
How's their
followers.
Feed?
Their feed has words in it, and they do a good job. It's pretty branded. A lot of the candy brands seem to be on the same, working with the same agency right now.
Almost, yeah. Well, I mean, think about it. Businesses to businesses, Instagram's really not the place to be. But if you're a consumer and you like a certain product, you're probably gonna follow them on Instagram.
Okay, I'm loving Oreo right now. Instagram. I'm hungry, I guess.
So you and I, because
time for lunch.
From a marketing standpoint, we don't necessarily think to go to Instagram to look for our companies, but the average consumer wants to know more about.
Okay.
I bet you Nike and Adidas are probably killing it as far as their Instagram followers.
Do you know who the most followed celebrity is?
Kim Kardashian?
No. Cristiano Ronaldo, apparently.
Really?
That, I couldn't find one to top him. Yeah.
Anyway. So anyway, yeah.
Are they
so
a performer?
I don't know how we missed it, but number 5 was using text creatively.
I think you just need to be careful.
Yeah, I agree. Because, you put a ton of text on a photo. It's sort of like what we talked about with business cards. If you flip over somebody's business card and they've got 300 million different text examples on the back of it of things that they do.
Someone's going to scroll right by that in the feed.
Yeah, same thing
I'm
happens.
just as disappointed when I flip it over and there's nothing on the back.
Well, some people do that.
You paid for this real estate and you're not using it.
Exactly. So ultimately, use text when you need to, but use it creatively. Don't just throw it up there for the sake of throwing it up there. So that Alicia's
I'm going to give examples.
Yeah, Alicia's going to throw a ton of examples.
Yeah,
so we've gone, well, actually, we're probably right where we need to be as far as time at this point. So I'll run through the last 5 one more time. So obviously, 1 is define your target audience. 2 is use the rule of thirds. Oh, sorry, no, 2 is not. 2 is use color theory. Lose my mind here. 3 is rule of thirds. 4 is composition. And finally, 5 is using text creatively. So those are all the things that you want to keep in mind when you're trying to curate your Instagram feed. And a lot of this will also follow over into pretty much all your social media. But for today's topic, it was Instagram. So
yeah.
So with that, I think we've beat that horse to death. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd say we covered it. So thanks for listening. And until next time,
see ya. Thank you for joining us today. And as always, you can find the back episodes of our podcast on Apple Podcasts. And you can also find us on our YouTube channel. Both of them are the Marketing Essentials Team.
You can find us on the web at marketingessentialsteam.com. And if you subscribe through our website, you'll receive a weekly email and letting you know when each episode has been published. Also, you'll receive a link to subscriber-only content.
You can also find us on Facebook in our private Facebook group. Just search Little Roadie Marketing Support Group. It's a great place for other marketing professionals and business owners where we can share marketing advice, challenges, and general trends. Hope to see you there.